Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're doing a very specific kind of biographical archaeology. We're not just looking at a historical figure. We're looking at a kind of psychological map of self-destruction. We are talking about Charles Baudelaire, the poet who, basically invented the modern idea of cool despair, and how he managed to weaponize his own failures into high art.
And we're coming at him through a really remarkable source. It's this comprehensive, fictionalized biography called the Baudelaire Triptych. And it's important to get that this isn't a normal biography. It's more like an interior excavation. It traces his systematic journey into what the authors call his apprenticeship of the abyss.
So we're basically pulling the narrative threads of his life to see how a life that seemed designed for failure became the blueprint for so much modern poetry. And the triptych breaks this journey into 3 parts, right?
3 movements, yeah. Book 1 is the apprenticeship of the abyss. That's his youth and a really formative sea voyage. Then Book 2, The Damned of Paris, which is his mature work in the urban underworld. And finally, Book 3, The Silent Room, which covers his tragic final years and his loss of language.
Okay, so our mission today is to really understand how this intentional fall, this descent, forged his central idea.
Right. That uncomfortable, but for him, necessary truth that beauty and corruption aren't opposites. They're collaborators. And he felt he had to witness life's darkest truths without ever looking away.
Okay, let's get into that, starting with Book 1. In 1841, Baudelaire's stepfather, General Albec, a very conventional man, he forces him onto a ship sailing for India. The idea was that this trip would sort of cure him of his artistic leanings.
Exactly. It was meant to be an exile, a purification. But the triptych makes it very clear that Baudelaire saw it differently. For him, it was a kind of a deliberate farewell to his old privileged self. And this is where he gets his first big philosophical insight, just from staring out at the sea, from the horizon.
The philosophical joke.
It's a philosophical joke, yeah. Because it retreats at the exact same speed that you approach it. You can never, ever reach it.
It's the perfect symbol for an impossible goal. And from that, he gets this idea.
That we are creatures made for pursuit, not for arrival. The whole point is the chase. The meaning is in the striving, not in getting there. And right after this very intellectual thought, you get this beautiful contrast with a simple sailor on the ship, a man named Jean-Marie.
Right. So Baudelaire, who's deep in his own naval metaphysics, asks this sailor, "What do you think of the sea?" Probably expecting some grand metaphor.
And the sailor just looks at him and says, with this perfect minimalism, she is wet and deep, and we are upon her. That is all there is to say. And Baudelaire apparently just wept. He called it the perfection of his answer. It was a huge lesson in humility, the gap between our complicated language and the simple, indifferent reality of the world.
So the sea teaches him that arrival is impossible. Where does that pursuit take him next?
The ship lands in Mauritius, and this is a huge pivot. The source says he found this deep, painful rot of colonialism there. He realized that paradise is always a place that has been ruined in advance. And this is where he meets a really key figure, a Creole woman, a métisse. She refuses to give him her name. She just says, names are for those who wish to be found.
Wow. And she seems to be, she sounds like the ethical foundation for all of his later poetry. What did he learn from her?
She gave him permission to fall. That's the key. She taught him that beauty and horror are collaborators. But more than that, she made him see that as a Parisian, as a beneficiary of this whole system, he wasn't just an innocent observer. He was, in her words, implicated, not innocent.
So he had to witness the corruption because he was a part of what created it.
Precisely.
That completely reframes everything that happens next. When he gets back to Paris, he inherits his huge fortune, 100,000 francs, life-changing money, and he doesn't invest it. He uses it as fuel.
That's right. The triptych argues his famous dandyism, the expensive clothes, the apartment on Ile Saint-Louis. It wasn't just him being reckless. It was a deliberate strategy of destruction. He was creating this dandy persona as a work of art that was designed to be destroyed, to force himself towards a permanent, deliberate, chosen poverty.
Hold on. I have to push back on that a little. Isn't that just a romantic way of saying he was bad with money? A lot of artists go broke.
I think the source sees the style as the key part of the argument. He knew that comfort, that wealth, would kill the urgency he needed for his art. So by turning his money into these beautiful temporary things, into a spectacle, he was burning the bridges back to a respectable life. He was choosing the street. He was choosing damnation.
That's a fascinating way to look at it. And that search also led him to the Club des Hachishins, where they consumed Dewamisk, right? This potent hashish confection. And he had this vision where he felt vast, infinite.
He was looking for a shortcut. He wanted that spiritual clarity, but without doing the hard work of the descent. And the drug gave him a genuinely sublime experience. For a moment. But ultimately, the artificial paradise was a complete failure for him.
Why? If the vision felt real, why was it a failure?
Because it was temporary. He said the drug opens the door, shows you the garden, then pushes you out and locks the gate behind you.
Yeah.
An artist can't rely on a chemical trick. He had to build a permanent door himself. And for him, that door was the poem.
Which brings us perfectly to part 2, the descent into modernity. This is 1860s Paris.
Yeah.
Having turned his back on the artificial paradise, he dives headfirst into the real urban inferno. He becomes the flaneur.
The flaneur, yeah. The stroller, the observer who walks the city but always stays apart. But this isn't the Paris he grew up in. This is Baron Haussmann's Paris. They're literally tearing down the old medieval city to build these wide, rational boulevards.
And Baudelaire saw this renovation, not as progress, but as the perpetual destruction of the past.
Yeah.
He saw the politics of it right away. Those wide boulevards were designed for the suppression of barricades, to make revolution harder.
His insight, which is chilling, was that this new rational city wasn't going to be any less damned than the old one. The damnation was just going to be cleaner, more institutionalized. So his whole project becomes about finding the people who reveal that hidden damnation.
And the triptych gives us these 3 incredible portraits of those people. The most famous one has to be Le Chiffonnier, the ragpicker.
Baudelaire called him the accountant of loss.
And just think about what a ragpicker actually does. He wades through the city's trash. He's sorting through torn-up love letters, unpaid bills, the broken pieces of thousands of lives. He sees the garbage as the city's dreams, everything the city is trying to forget.
So he's literally collecting what respectable society throws away. The parallel to Baudelaire's own work is just, it's perfect.
It's the same job.
It is the exact same job. They are both collectors of what's left over. One puts it in a sack, the other puts it in a poem. Art is the highest form of ragpicking.
Then you have Celeste, the prostitute, who reads the utopian socialist Fourier. She offers this terrifyingly cold clarity on the economy of desire.
Right. She was honest about the transaction. She argues that the sex market and the marriage market are only different in their legal status and their hypocrisy. Her only revenge on the system that exploits her is just clarity. She refuses to lie about what she is and what she does. And Baudelaire found that intellectual honesty just magnetic.
So if you connect this back, he's using these figures to show that damnation is everywhere. It's structural. But he also looks at the limits of art itself in capturing all this modern chaos. Through Valentin, the mad painter trying to paint the crowd.
An impossible task. He fails because, as he says, the crowd had no perspective. It broke him. He could only see a blur in the blur. And that's a lesson for Baudelaire. Traditional art forms can't handle the modern world. It's too fast, too fragmented.
So his poetry had to reflect that. It had to be fragmented, contradictory. It had to embrace the rupture that traditional art tried to smooth over.
And this whole descent hits its lowest point with the ultimate horror in the triptych. The encounter with La Petite, the child and cellar. This is the point of no return.
The source material is just brutal here. It says this scene taught him that there is no redemption. This single act of hidden systemic evil was the final proof that damnation has no floor beneath which one cannot fall. That irreducible horror has to haunt his poetry from now on. It's the shadow under all the beauty.
Right. And this whole intense period of witnessing, it leads to one last final confrontation with the abyss. The woman in black, this recurring figure who is both the ideal and death, leads him into the secret parts of the Paris catacombs.
A powerful metaphor. The descent ends up in the literal foundation of the city.
And it reveals the double city. You have Haussmann's living Paris on the surface, but it's built on these permanent, unchanging walls of bone underneath. He realizes the living are just walking on a ceiling beneath which their future selves are stacked. The final truth of Paris is death. It's always there, just under your feet.
And it's down there, in the catacombs, that Celeste gives him a vial of some nameless liquid. And this time, it doesn't distort reality like the hashish. It gives him this ultimate agonizing clarity.
It's the complete opposite of the artificial paradise. This final vision doesn't show him a garden and then lock him out. It reveals the architecture of the self. He sees that the void at the center of the self was not emptiness, it was potential. He realizes we are not solid, we are processes. We are constantly in a state of becoming and falling apart.
This one moment of clarity seems to synthesize everything he's learned, his 3 foundational truths.
Right. First, that evil isn't just an absence of good, it's an active force. The will to power exercised without limit.
Second, that beauty can never be about perfection. It is the presence of the sublime in the midst of the terrible, the flower growing out of the rot.
And the third most crucial insight: art is the only honest response to that abyss. The poem is what resists destruction. It holds that terrifying moment in permanent language. That's his form of redemption.
Which brings us, tragically, to Book 3, The Silent Room, the ultimate irony. In 1866, Baudelaire has a stroke, develops aphasia, and loses almost all of his ability to speak. The man whose ultimate weapon was language is now trapped inside his own mind.
The apprenticeship of the abyss finds its final stage, the abyss of the self. But even in that silence, he still has his vision. He sees the people around him, his mother, his doctors, not as people, but as specimens, just defined by their own needs and projections.
He realizes we never see each other, only our ideas of each other. That final isolation gives him the final clarity about human loneliness.
And the only word he could consistently get out was this mangled blasphemy, Crénom, a shortened version of Sacré nom de Dieu, sacred name of God. And the triptych suggests that while everyone else heard a curse, a rejection, he heard it as a prayer.
It was the only door left open. The only way his trapped consciousness could hurl itself out into the world.
The final truth, delivered in the language of damnation.
The book closes with his final summation, the epitaph for his whole journey. I have learned that I am still falling, and I have learned that the fall is beautiful.
Baudelaire's apprenticeship of the abyss. It was this methodical, intentional journey. He cultivated clarity by seeking out the forbidden, the damaged. His work isn't just poetry, it's a map, a detailed ethical map of the modern urban inferno. It's a testament to the power of the observer who refuses to look away.
And his legacy is really that refusal, the refusal of the comfortable lie. He insisted that you cannot separate good and evil, beauty and horror. For him, the integrity of the artist lies purely in that refusal to look away.
And so that leaves an important question for you, for anyone trying to understand him. Baudelaire spent his entire adult life under a legal guardianship meant to protect him from himself, and he ended his career paralyzed and silent. So if he learned that damnation is the human condition and salvation is the story we tell ourselves to make damnation bearable, does his magnificent work actually offer some kind of artistic redemption? Or is it just the stunning final statement of a comprehensive failure to ever escape the self?